Recently, when I run in the morning or when I'm just like chilling out on a nice warm night as summer is starting to arrive where I live, I've been listening to a lot of UK garage playlists and whatnot. Even those like house music ones on YouTube, see those all the time. So it ultimately led to me wanting to cook up my own modern garage house track. And I'm not aiming for a modern version of UK garage. I'm actually aiming for its mother genre that originated from the East Coast here in New York. The genre is technically an East Coast version of what was going on in the Midwest, which was techno and house music. And it got its name because of the venue in which this music was being played in. This venue was called the Paradise Garage. You can do some more research on your own with all that information. To make the track that you hear today, which is just a modern approach to making a garage house track, I was listening to a lot of Todd Edwards and Todd Terry and those playlists that I was talking about. When I was listening to these artists, I was hearing really cool applications of sample chopping and also was being drawn in by the unique bass lines. Most of all, it's the lack of rules and the ability to blend multiple sounds of different genres together. So without any further ado, let's go into how we made the track for the intro here. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and if you want to see any specific type of content, just let me know down in the comments because I like checking those out. This is the arrangement screen of Ableton 11. I use dark mode as the visual setting in case anyone was wondering. That's why it kind of looks like FL. Real quick before I get into all this, I'm just showing you my return effects that I have down here in pink. I have two different compressors so I can send like drums to one and the instruments to the other if I choose. I didn't end up doing that today. I have reverb and I also have this Ableton stock effect, which is like a group of effects. It's called Drums Boombox. You can just search it up in the search bar. It is the fast track to a good drum sound. You don't put it on the drums, you just send your drums to it. I like having a couple return effects before I even start making the track, just so I have some things to mess around with. So the BPM for the track today that I'm choosing to make is 128 BPM. So currently here is the sample that I chose to go with. I found it on YouTube. I'm not sure if sample snitching is a thing in electronic music, but it kind of seems like it is in hip hop. But I'm going to do it anyhow since you're looking at my project file. It is I Didn't Want to Have to Do It by Ralphie Pagan off of Fania Records. I actually have a few of this label's records on vinyl. I think what really drew me into wanting to make something like this is just the sample-based approach to coming up with a cool melodic groove. This is one of the two loops that I came up with for this track. I came up with the main one, which is this, and then there's a variation on it, and that's why I say that I have two loops, even though I'm using one of them way more throughout the whole track. I built the loop by dragging the song into instrument rack here, and I had to switch it from classic mode down to slice. I did that so I could trigger the sample at different areas and also set my own markers of where I want to trigger the sample. This is what it looks like to set slice markers so you can trigger the sample. I usually just look for the starts of wavelengths that look interesting if I really don't know what to chop up upon the first couple listens. And you just have like that feeling that you know it's a good sample, but you just don't know what to use. Anything is possible. I've got a lot of stock Ableton effects as my processing for the loop. The main thing is this flanger here, little EQ. And compression. I have a sidechain compressor running also, and that's for the kick drum later on, so I'll talk about that. It's on a couple different other layers of this track too. I put it pretty far down in volume so I had room to make the drums knock and just give myself a good reference point for when I started adding drums. Then it was time for the kick. Rhythmically, I don't know how to explain this any clearer. It's just 4 on the floor. I did a variation of the kick though, where it is slightly syncopated, bum, 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 or something like that. But to get the kick sound, I layered 3 different kicks from various sources, mainly this J Dilla drum kit that I have from so long ago, I don't even know where it came from. And then the hit kit. I was just looking for a chunky, clubby sound and a sub sound, and I layered them on top of each other inside an instrument rack. I had a little bit of Pultec EQ, adding some more low end, and then I had a utility plugin making the bass frequencies mono to control things from getting too muddy. And then a little EQ, just making things sound a little better to my ear. Subtle stuff though, I wasn't boosting too much because I did that in the Pultec already. And then this glue compressor with a very quick attack and a long release. In my opinion, it makes the kick drum sound snappier. I'm sending the kick drum audio directly to 2 of those return effects. One of them being the compressor and the other being, there's not much in the compressor. The other is in the drum boombox stock effect. When you're going to process a kick drum for a genre like this, you're going to want a lot of sub bass frequencies, a lot of crispy high end, but you don't want muddy frequencies. I'll talk about why the kick is grouped with the bass a little later on. Now that the kick was laid down, it was time to build the rest of the drum foundation. You don't want to overthink things for a genre like this because it's just a series of simple loops, and the secret here is in the arrangement process and how you choose to groove those different loops. I found a hi-hat loop in Ableton here. Next, I went with an open hi-hat sound. It's that classic offbeat pattern. I know it sounds like a drum machine. I don't know which one though. Once you see me with a drum machine, you know I've made it. Okay, so the next thing I did was layered another hi-hat sound directly over that same open hi-hat rhythm. It just thickened up the sound a little bit more. I turned it down in volume a little bit. Then I think there's another layer of some faster closed hi-hat sound. This is all of that together. The processing is a drum bus, some saturation, and a little bit of EQ. The drum bus is the big thing here. It was just, I don't know, giving it a brighter sound, in my opinion. A fuller sound too, more of a place in the mix. It was time to complete the drums, and in a separate group I put the rimshot and clap/snare sounds. You don't have to copy me there, I just did that for a more controlled mix, so I could mix these a little bit different. So I've got 3 different sounds for the clap/snare. One of them is that J Dilla snare, and 2 different clap sounds that I found through drum kits that I have acquired, or just through looking on, you can just search like snare or clap in the search bar on Ableton, and there's a bunch of good samples to use. I then layered a tambourine sounding rimshot. It's a super simple pattern, and it's just made to give a little extra high-end punch. No one single layer had too much complicated going on with it. The drums were done, and it was time to add one more little classic element of house music. That dub chord layer. I don't know if it comes from electronic piano, like a Rhodes, or even like an organ, like a Hammond. Or maybe it's a sample of those things. I don't know. What I used, though, was this stock Ableton sound. You're going to hear me say that a lot. It's a stock Ableton sound. Guys, use this stuff. A really dope dub chord. And it's just adding some depth of atmosphere to it all. And in order to give it some motion, I just assigned an envelope filter to one of the effects knobs on the synth, and it just moves the knob every time the notes are triggering. And then an LFO I've assigned to another knob of effects. I'm trying to explain in layman's terms here. This LFO is sweeping like a wave pattern, and that pattern is controlling the effects. And I've told the LFO what to do specifically, like what effect to do that to. knew I had inspiration from the things I was listening to earlier, but also I knew I wanted to add a bass drop later on in this track, so I wasn't fully going for recreation of a genre. I was just messing around at this point. There's a couple effects on this bass sound that you hear. It's just a stock sound. Super clean, subby, clubby bass. I have a couple stock sounds on it, ultimately just making it fit better in the mix and come through more on smaller systems, especially with this erosion effect. I was working off the different tiers in the live screen of Ableton, so I wasn't actually just like forming this free form as I went, but I was just working the different sections, which is kind of why I added this Reese bass, just to highlight that it's a different part of the song. There's simple EQ and adding back some saturation after going on, but the biggest thing was the side chain there. Yeah, so this is the live screen that I was talking about, and this is how I was able to visualize different sections as I was working, even though I didn't know how long the sections would actually be playing out and what instruments would be coming in and out. Coming up here is the last bit of basses that come in. It's 2 new sounds, but they're the same pattern, so I just copied and pasted them over. I call that donkey bass. It's just like an FM bass style thing, but it's just like slightly subbier. I know you probably hear all those crazy echoes, but I'm going to explain that in the automations part of this video, because I did that after I arranged everything. It didn't actually sound like that while I was working on it. By the way, if you guys would like to see videos of me actually working on the track and not explaining the breakdown of the thing after, let me know. I'm super into that whole idea as well. That was all the bass elements of this track. Now, all was left was to just go through the effects to fill that drop section up a little bit more, because without this, it was sounding a little empty. I just used some whistles and some dumb, stupid chant sounds from like trap kits. One of them has a little echo on it. My inspiration for that like rhythmic pattern was that Jersey club sound, which is kind of full circle because garage kind of comes from over there. The last effect is this classic little rave sweeping sound. I just do that to indicate a transitional moment or the beginning of a new section. It's getting sidechained, and there's also a chopping effect going on. One thing I forgot to explain is why I have the kick and bass grouped. I have them grouped so I can glue the kick and the bass together with a limiter. Now it's time for the arrangement process. While I was making the track, I was good enough to remember and screen record myself fooling around with the automations and stuff. I'll put a little montage on the screen now and also throw some words up there, kind of explaining what I did. If you've stayed around to the end of the video like you have, thank you so much. And don't forget to leave a like or even comment on what kind of content you'd like to see next, or even if you'd like to see me fully make these tracks from scratch. If you want to hear what I made in its entirety, you can go stream that on my Bandcamp page. The link will be in the description of the video.